Knights at the Round Table, a round-table discussion on speculative fiction books and film.
Welcome to Knights of the Round Table, Season 5? 6?
6.
We're at Season 6. I am Sonia, and today with me is Nathan Fréchette and Michael Curley. We are going to discuss the classic film Incredibles.
Yes, we are.
Start with first impressions, since you haven't been here for a while, Mike.
Sure, yeah. Well, I saw this movie in theaters almost 15 years ago, and...
Whoa, you're old.
God! Yes, that's right, everyone. And it lived up to its name immediately. I immediately put it in, top-level Pixar, which is saying a lot, because Pixar is almost uniformly incredible. I gotta think of synonyms at this point. But yeah, so for something to be top tier, Pixar is really saying something, and in all the years since, it has remained near the top of the list for me. It is fantastic, magnificent, incredible. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite Pixar movies too, and it's one of those movies that I showed to my kids really early on because I wanted to get them into superheroes.
Good idea.
But also, it's the kind of movie that is for all ages. Really, there's very few movies that will really please everybody in a crowd, and I think that's one of them.
Oh, for sure.
I also saw this in theaters, which is... yes, the theater I saw it in no longer exists. Great movie.
Feel even older.
Terrible theater. I'm not very good choice to talk about this movie because I love it, every inch of it. It's my second favorite Pixar movie of all time.
This is going to be a very negative panel.
Yeah. Honestly, I honestly can't think of anything bad to say about the movie, so I think it's just a matter of praising what we want to praise about it and focusing on what we want to focus on, because and if anybody has any nitpicks, that's interesting to talk about, but sometimes praise is good, right?
Yeah.
When it's earned.
It manages to be the perfect superhero movie while making fun of superhero movies at the same time. It jokes at the tropes,
right,
which are fantastic.
Well, what I would say about it, though, is, first of all, one of the greatest superhero films of all time, and I know quite a bit about superhero films, and I would say the greatest superhero film with characters created specifically for film. I can't think of another original superhero property that is better than this one, but I think the interesting thing, what you said about poking fun at superhero tropes, superhero films have grown and evolved so much since then, and for it to still hold up is really interesting. And I think some of the things it poked fun at the time, I think unless you were really into comic books or really into superheroes at the time, because superhero films weren't super prevalent at the time. They were getting there. There were Spider-Man movies, there were X-Men movies, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy hadn't even started yet. It was still fairly early days in this big superhero revolution, and so I think in retrospect it looks almost prescient, in the way that it approached a lot of these things. So, it just becomes more and more relevant as we go, I think.
As a young person, I really love the comic Watchmen, and I love The Incredibles for all of the same reasons that I loved Watchmen, and I thought that it did certain things even better, when you think about how superheroes would really be in the real world, and the real world consequences of superheroes. I think it was brilliant.
Yeah, to go to the start of the movie, that day in the life sequence of Mr. Incredible is one of the greatest. It remains one of the greatest superhero sequences ever. Just the idea of if you were a superhero, one of those superheroes that we know and love from movies and TV shows and stuff, and comics, of course. We rarely see the whole kind of one crisis leads right into another, and you just gradually over the course of the scene, the sun goes down and it gets darker, and it's you really get the sense that this is what the life would be like, just one thing after another, and it's just it's so well done, and I don't think I've seen it before or since, in pretty much any medium of just one thing after another done so well.
And the pacing, I like I like rewatching movies from that time period, and I'm a big fan of action movies and horror movies, and nothing holds up to the pacing of the beginning of this movie.
Oh yeah.
The pacing of the beginning of the movie is you're in it, you're interested.
Yeah.
5 minutes in, most action movies to start with, you're like, okay, come on, get to the fight.
Right.
This, you're like, ooh, superhero stuff. Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
And it's really awesome because right at the beginning you have this whole like big superhero saving the world kind of things, and the stakes are like it's not a big disaster that like does the downfall of superheroes and all. He gets sued.
Yeah.
By someone who didn't want to be saved.
Yeah.
And those stakes are so small, and you care about them so much.
Of course, yeah.
You know?
And it brings up an interesting idea of who has the right to save people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, if he wanted to commit suicide, then is it his right to commit suicide? You know, like, and that's, yeah, I mean, it's this interesting thing, and you know, as superheroes, like, unlicensed, they're not police, they're not anything like that, and like, so they leave themselves open to that kind of litigation, and it's an interesting direction to take it, but really, I think we can all agree, like, that opening sequence is great, and it gives us a sense for what superheroes were like in their heyday, and that kind of, like, that suing him and everything like that, that's all really interesting, but really, all of that is just that means to an end to just get to the heart of what the movie wants to be about, right, which is
the best
midlife
Fantastic
crisis
Four movie ever made.
Yeah, oh, it is. You know, until the MCU gets going on it. I was hoping for but really, it's about, like, you know, midlife crisis, and you find yourself like, you know, here is my life. This is what it is now. Like, you know, you've settled into your life. You have the kids. You have your job and everything like that. And that feeling of like, is this all there is? Is this what my life is? You know, and like wanting to relive the heyday and that kind of feeling. And it's funny because I was, you know, 19 when I first saw it, and all of that family stuff I thought was incredibly done and hit me hard and really gets that emotional Pixar punch that you expect. And now that I'm, you know, 15 years older and I have 2 kids and I'm settled into my job and everything like that, watching this movie is very, very different, and it's become even more relevant for me now than it ever was back then, and that's incredible when a movie can like get you one way when you're young, like all the superhero action, that's all great, and then the emotion just became more relevant to me as I grew up, which is amazing. Yeah, Eric, feel the same way?
Pretty much down. Yeah. What he said.
One of the things that I love about the opening sequence is how much they can fit into those like couple of minutes, and this is something that Pixar is especially really good at. They do it with I'm thinking about Up. You know, that's one of the like greatest like opening sequences of any movie. Like,
just tear your heart out right away.
Oh my god! But they do it. You know, they do it in a couple of shots, a couple of images, just like a couple of scenes. They establish who these people are, what the stakes are, what you should care about, and you know, for the whole movie, you're settled. You don't have to like grow into half of the movie to like really get to know all these characters.
The emotional work is done.
Exactly.
Which is really nice because a lot of movies love to drag that out over the entire movie, and you're like, it's a superhero movie, and I love superheroes, but I tend to prefer this kind of hopeful, the hero wants to help people type of superhero, less than the I'm an angsty, my family died, let's watch this for 30 minutes and repeat it.
He doesn't resist the call. This isn't like a hero's journey where he's resisting the call and has to be kind of dragged out of retirement or something like that. He's itching to come out of retirement. It's all he wants in the world, and it's almost like flipping that on the head. He's like, he's too eager to accept the call, and he doesn't really get a sense for how sketchy the whole situation is until later on, right? And it's more about, like, you know, most heroes, like, resisting the call, like a Logan or something like that. Oh, I have my life now, and as terrible as it is, I need to kind of stick with what's important, and then he realizes the superheroine is important too. Here, Mr. Incredible, Bob, he wants to do the superhero thing, and he's almost undervaluing the importance of family until they kind of like rise to meet him, and like them coming together on that island, all in their in their costumes and everything. And it's like, I wish there was a Fantastic Four movie like that.
The character development for this is about the family and not about the heroes individually, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I find Fantastic Four, any kind of ensemble superhero cast, I'm thinking like No Ordinary Family, if you remember that a long time ago. It's not the, oh good, he has powers, let's go through a story arc where he finds out about his powers. It's great. I mean, we saw it for 2 Spider-Man, well, 3 I guess now, although Spider-Verse did it perfectly. Movies. This was about learning to work together as a family and growing. All the character development was family, and that's a lot more fun for me than another Dark Phoenix.
For sure.
And like to your point about like there's something for everybody, right? There's something for everybody to enjoy. Even just the character development. Like I love like the theme for the kids is like, you know, they start the movie holding back on what makes them special and what makes them interesting and trying to just lessen who they are to fit in better. And by the end of the movie, it's like, no, like figure out what you're good at, figure out what you're best at, and embrace that and celebrate that. And that is such a great message for kids, right? And so, like, I could watch this with my daughter, and I could be, you know, tearing up about, like, Bob not wanting to lose his family and realizing his family is important, and my daughter could be thinking, like, oh, I want to figure out what I'm good at and what makes me a superhero. And, like, it's just, like, every level, it's just firing on all cylinders. It's unbelievable.
And it's different from a lot of movies that involves, like, parents and children, where you have, like, plots that follow parents and plots that follow children. Like, here, everybody is a protagonist. Everybody is an actor. And you have, like, the adults going off and doing their things, and then you have the kids coming and rescuing them. But it's not just about the adults, and it's not just about the kids.
Yeah.
It's like everybody has an important part to play in this.
And it's nice when that happens, because you don't have stupid parents or stupid kids.
Right.
Yeah.
I also like, you were talking about how the kids have to learn, and their eagerness, especially Dash at the beginning, to use their powers mirrors his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just like I'm sure you've seen this with your kids, they will do exactly what you find most annoying in yourself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My daughter looks exactly like my wife, and I kept thinking as she was getting older, like, I hope there's something of me in there. And then when she started talking, it was kind of like an, oh no. Oh no, there it is. So yeah, I see that exactly, and just you know, Helen's you know, apprehension about the whole thing, and like, not that she's like really forcing the kids to like hold themselves back, but she's a little more apprehensive, a little more cautious about it, whereas like Bob from the beginning is like really excited, like, oh, the camera didn't even see you, isn't that amazing, you know? And it's just like, and also something I've always found is just like Helen and Bob's relationship is so great, and when they kind of argue and have those kinds of married couple arguments, like it feels so real. And for like an animated film to have like such a real, genuine, like you know, marriage, and these characters feel real, and they have strong points of view that like are both valid, and nobody's really right and nobody's really wrong, and they just, you know, having those discussions, like it always felt so real to me, which is incredible because it's an animated superhero film.
Not only real, but not the trope of Hollywood movies and shows where, oh, they're fighting, they're going to break up.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no,
I
exactly.
never feel that.
They fight, but they do it lovingly.
Yeah,
you know,
of course,
and they just
yeah.
see things different ways.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they included superpowers in every little aspect of their life. Like, you know, exactly like Helen with the pinching, but also the fighting and like the reaching out her arms and the protecting her children.
Oh, of course,
you know,
yeah.
like it's just, if you had a superpower like this, you wouldn't just use it to fight crime.
Of course not.
Pervade, like it would be in every little aspect of your life.
Yeah, or vacuuming, you know? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we had a question about the animation over the Twitch break, and I thought that was too big a part to not talk about. I've recently rewatched it back to back with the second one, and it does suffer in shading and rendering, like certain materials. But other than that, the design was so beautiful, and they chose an aesthetic, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 50s-ish? 50s, 60s
Yeah,
aesthetic?
I think,
That was very modern, as in the movement lines,
Yeah.
straight, very
It
solid
gives it a
colors.
timeless kind of feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I honestly we don't talk about this enough in animated films. I think the production design and the costume design in this movie, like sometimes I almost think like they should be eligible for like Oscars for like costume design and production design
absolutely.
and art direction, because this movie just like the designs are like late 50s, early 60s, very mod. Like the egg-shaped monorail and the kind of rounded furniture, and even like Syndrome's like evil volcano layer, feels very much
James
like
Bond.
very,
James
but
Bond,
60s James
60s,
Bond specifically,
yeah.
and it's got this retro future quality. Like this is futuristic tech that they would have come up with in the 60s, and I just adore it. And even right down to the score, Michael Giacchino's score, which actually
my ringtone.
They went to John Barry, who did a lot of the early Bond scores for a couple decades, actually, and they asked him to do the score for it, and he actually said he wasn't interested because it would feel like going backwards for him, and so then they hired Giacchino, and I think this was his first major film score coming out of like Alias and Lost and stuff on TV. He'd done a lot of that, and this was a big jump to film for him, and it is amazing. It's like it's got this brassy 60s James Bond sound that just matches the aesthetic, and I just adore it so much. And they continue that with the second one. They actually, I think they go a little more late 60s with the second one to show a bit of a passage of time. But like, yeah, the production design, the costume design, everything like that is just brilliant. Which is also why Edith Head, who is a big costume designer in the 50s and 60s, like Hitchcock and everything like that, is the main basis for Edna, because, it just all fits into that aesthetic.
Yeah. The music also, because I studied a lot of the earlier, the 2000s superheroes, the ones when they started, and the score was always very woodwind brass, big, and they mimic that a little bit, but more in the style, like you said.
Right.
So it fits in with the aesthetic of its time while being completely different. So beautiful.
Oh, it's amazing, yeah.
Do we want to gush about Edna?
Oh my god, Edna.
A character that could have so easily been like...
The whole movie by herself?
No, but she could have been a
God.
stereotype.
She could have been a
could've-
stereotype.
She could have.
The fact that she's voiced by the director and that it could have been
You know
a
why
really
she's
bad...
voiced by the director, though,
Because
right?
he did such an amazing job that
Because
nobody
he
else
couldn't
could...
find someone that had exactly what he had in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of animated movies, they'll do like these little temp voices to just give people an idea before they hire somebody, and so often when you find like the director kind of taking over that voice, it's not just like, it's not an ego thing where it's like, I want to voice a main character. It's literally like whoever they found in the production office or the director or whatever just knocked it out of the park so completely, like why would they go anywhere else when it's so perfect?
It happens with music too.
Yeah.
Temp scores are often the director just go with that.
Yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey is a good example.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
But Edna is fantastic. Like she's, and when you talked about like kind of satirizing the genre a little bit, like a lot of that comes in there, like the whole no capes thing, and just all of that. Like she's so great. Yeah.
My daughter still goes around going, "No capes!" Little 2-year-old.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about Edna?
I think we've said it.
That look on her face of just pure disgust when what's her name? The mother, Helen sees the baby on fire in the suit. It's like, come on,
Darling.
it's not a real baby.
I think the other character that we haven't really hit on yet, and I think this is another great thing about the film and just how well it's aged, unfortunately, is Syndrome, who, like, he is every toxic fan online right now. You know, the sheer, like, the holding the knowledge over people's heads and the entitlement of like, this is how I want this to go, like
this gatekeeping.
Yeah, and the gatekeeping, yeah. And the idea of fan, the type of fan who like, watches a movie and is like, oh, it'd be interesting if these characters do this, and then over time it turns into like, oh, well, I really hope that happens, and then it turns into, if this doesn't happen, then this movie is terrible and I hate it. Like, that is Syndrome, that's exactly what it is. And for a superhero film 15 years ago to have its main villain be a member of the toxic fandom that we are unfortunately very familiar with right now, and that has afflicted this genre and other genres so much. It's like, yeah, like it's like they knew that these people were existing, and they were going to become a big part of the online conversation eventually, and it's too bad, but he is the villain.
Frustrating. Yeah. Sorry, one of my favorite new superhero movies is Captain Marvel, and there is so much hate for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because I see something of news about it and I'm like, oh great, click. Ah, fanboy stupid. Delete.
Yeah. Oh, it's ridiculous, and it's gatekeeping is really the word for it. It's that idea. It's like, if it's not exactly what I want it to be or what I expect it to be, then I hate it, and I don't like the idea of like, like people who don't like the idea of diversity in comic book films and everything. It has to be just so, and if they're not kind of the main purveyor and the main driver of where it all goes, then screw everything, right? And that's how he feels in the movie.
And it goes to an extreme where they start making up conspiracy theories and thinking the world is out to get them. He's such a perfect bad guy character.
And Jason Lee voicing him, he's kind of like, he hasn't been around much lately. I don't know the last thing I saw him in, but at the time, like, coming out of those Kevin Smith movies, playing really like pop culture aware characters and everything like that. He seemed like choice. Yeah, he was the perfect choice to play that.
Jason Lee.
Who is he?
He was.
He was in Mallrats, like the main character in Mallrats.
He's the super like knowledgeable comic guy in Mallrats. He's the
Tasha Stanley
inker in Chasing Amy.
Okay. My Name is Earl.
Was he in Clerks?
No, he was not in that. He's the star of My Name is Earl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Vaguely remember him.
Yeah, but he was like Mallrats especially. He was that character in Mallrats who like lived in his parents' basement and had like
comic book shop
thousands
guy,
and thousands
basically.
of basically, and just super pop culture aware and applied pop culture to everything and that kind of thing.
And sneered at people who knew less.
Exactly. And so he like perfectly embodied that character in those early Kevin Smith movies, and then for him to play this role, it was just like it was perfect casting. And so he was kind of he was in the zeitgeist at the moment, so it was a good casting for that. But he just sells that so perfectly. He does a great job.
We are quickly running out of time.
Okay.
So we're going to go to final thoughts and star rating.
My final thoughts are are the same as my first one. It's one of my favorite Pixar movies. It's one of my favorite cartoons in general. Solid 5 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, same. This is the kind of movie that if I'm upset, I'll watch it. If I'm happy, I'll watch it. If I'm bored, I'll watch it. It really suits any mood. And it never makes me angry, which is really nice. So many old movies that I loved will get to a part and I'm like, that's dumb!
Yeah.
Not to open a whole other can of worms, but like, how do you feel about the sequel?
It was enjoyable and definitely an entire other panel.
Yeah. That's what I was saying.
But no, there are more issues with the sequel than there are with the first one.
Yeah, it's like because what I was gonna say for my like final thoughts is like this movie is perfect. It is perfect. Like I can't find any nits to pick, and it's so perfect. And whereas with the sequel, like there are one or two things I could point to as being like a little imperfect. It's still a great movie. That one would still be like a 4-star movie, but Incredibles, hands down, no question, 5-star movie. It's perfect. It's great.
And if you have the DVD or Blu-ray or want to go on YouTube, The Babysitting Short with Jack.
Yes.
Jack Attack.
That's a 6 out of 5.
Amazing.
It's Jack Attack. Absolutely amazing. As is the sequels one with Edna babysitting Jack.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Just perfect.
All right. So as usual, the real Sonia will be creeping in the comments and maybe commenting back or
You're not the real Sonia?
You know, I've never seen Eric and Sonia in the same room at the same time.
Ooh.
Good point.
No, I have. There's video. I'm pretty sure there's video evidence of it somewhere.
So invisible right now.
Comment, subscribe, do that bell thing that lets you know when we do new things. We're on Facebook. I don't think we're on Instagram. Someone's going to have to pick a new movie because I forgot. And just say hi. I mean, if we have 15 highs in the comments, I'll be really happy. That'd be incredible.
Oh.
All right, and the movie I've chosen is Flight of the Dragons.
Yes!
Why do I have Flight of the Valkyrie stuck in my head now? Thanks. So the next movie will be Flight of the Dragons.
I believe it is 1982.
Okay, I know nothing about it, but it's got dragons, so I'm in. Bye.